Have you ever been working on a project and felt like you're drowning in spaghetti code? You're not alone, it's a common problem. Your code works, but it's a tangled mess. If you don't make a conscious effort to fixing that habit might just stick with you forever. But here's the good news, you're watching this video. I'll be sharing with you 5 programming concepts where followed correctly can literally take you from writing code like a noob to an expert software engineer. These are techniques big tech programmers swear by in order to write legacy code that is scalable, maintainable, and testable. Principle number 1, the DRY principle. DRY is an abbreviation that stands for Don't Repeat Yourself. If you ever find yourself copying your own code and pasting elsewhere in your code base, you're literally going against this principle. Don't do that. Rather, that chunk of code should be written as a function and called from different parts of your code base. That's what functions are meant for, right? Reusability. That's what the DRY principle aims for, to reduce repetition of code. If you ever feel like you need a slightly modified version of that same code, there's still no need to copy and paste. Just take in a parameter and make the function dynamic. Another way to identify you're going against this rule is if you ever want to make a change and you discover you have to make that change in a couple of places in your code base. Just like this piece of code. The opposite of DRY is waste, which means write it well or waste everybody's time. Principle number 2, the KEYS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. No, I don't mean to insult you or anything. That's what the principle stands for. This principle was designed by the US Navy in the year 1960 and is now it seems to be used in the field of programming. It states that systems work best when kept simple rather than complicated. You've probably written code that was so complicated that you couldn't understand it yourself. You violated the KEYS principle. One common problem with developers is that we tend to overcomplicate problems. This problem emerges when we don't break down our code into simple enough, understandable enough pieces. This results to overcomplicated implementation of even the most simple problem. To remedy this, you should always break down your code into simple enough steps or pieces that will make your code simple enough to understand. Speaking of complicated, because you can write a whole function in one line, doesn't mean you should. If the syntax doesn't make it easy enough for your fellow engineers to understand, then there's no point in doing so. Principle number 3, the Yagne principle. You aren't gonna need it. The Yagne principle is a practice in software development which states that features should be added when you need them, not when you foresee that you will need them. In the past, I default this rule by creating functions and methods I think I might need for future features, which most times I ended up not using at all in the code base.
Why? Why would you do that?
Not until I discovered the Agile methodology, which gives high reference to writing code for only the current feature you're working on, which backs up the Yagne principle. Principle number 4, the SOP principle. SOP is an abbreviation that stands for separation of concerns. This principle implies that while developing a software project, we should break down our code into smaller modules or functions that handle a specific task. Emphasis on specific tasks. This goes to say that our function should not handle more than one task. Take a look at this JavaScript function. It's doing both a mathematical calculation and updating the DOM at the same time. Don't do that. What we'll rather do is move this part of the code to another function, therefore having 2 functions, each handling a specific task. That's clean code. You're getting closer to becoming a Google employee. Principle number 5, GDP. Good Development Practices. Have you ever come across a piece of code that got you confused, wondering what the code does or why it was written in that particular way? That's where GDP comes in. This principle helps you document your code in such a way that after years of not looking at your code, you could still understand what your code does. Good documentation practices goes over writing self-explanatory variable names, functions, and methods, using comments to explain your code, having a README file that gives an overview of your project, writing good commit messages when using version control systems like Git, having a clear API documentation that explains what each endpoint does. Sticking with good documentation practices enhances your code sustainability and maintainability long term. In conclusion, these 5 principles, DRY, KEYS, Yagne, SOP, and GDP, aren't just catchy acronyms, but they're your secret weapon to becoming a top-tier engineer. Remember, don't repeat yourself. Keep it simple, stupid. You aren't gonna need it. Separation of concerns, good documentation practices are your allies in the quest for writing clean, efficient, and maintainable code. Follow these principles and you're on your way to success in the world of software development. Thanks for watching. I'm Winning God's Power. I'm on a mission to teach and train software engineers. Kindly give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you later. Goodbye.